We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do us well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a PATC legend with your comments in the chat room or with your phone calls later in the show. Today's live show, well, we're going to be doing our picks against the spread today. Usually we wait later into the week. We do it on a Wednesday. We do it on a Thursday afternoon. Sometimes we do it on a Tuesday night. This week we're going to be doing it on Monday. Today. Why do you ask? There's a couple different reasons. One of them is this could end up being a very interesting week. Now, so I think today is a really good opportunity to get our picks, to talk about the games this coming up weekend. There's a lot of interesting games this weekend. We're going to be doing 9 games, picking against the spread for 9 of them. And during the week, we're going to talk about the games. No question about it. But I think today we hit it hard. Kind of leave more space, more opportunities, more windows during the week to talk about the unfolding events that are going around in college football, One of them being the Oregon State, Washington State mediation with the Pac-12. I got a feeling that this is going to it's got to get solved. It just does, because there's so many pieces waiting for this to get solved. The biggest important piece is the college football playoffs themselves. Not just the structure, they basically got that figured out, but the distribution of money. There's a lot of things that go on with it, and this has got to get solved. I hope it does. It could happen this week. We're keeping our ears close to the ground. And of course, other things like the Holy Smokes Theater, the Florida State Money Perch. The Florida State Money Perch, who told us on December 26, 2022, we reported it, that in a couple of months from now, there was going to be some public statement by Florida State saying how things have got to change in the ACC when it comes to revenue, unequal revenue sharing, or we're going to have to do something drastic. And they also told us that drastic action could happen. It looks like it's going to happen in the first quarter of 2024. We were told that in December 26, 2022. That, and then 2 months later, Mike Alford spoke in public. That same Florida State Money Perch has communicated to us within the last 24 hours. I'll just put it that way. And Greg Sankey is in the theater. We talked about it in the last live show. He is in the theater, and there's more indications that SEC is becoming more and more aggressive with these indirect talks. Now, we're not going to hit it on this live show too much because we got some information, and now it's Monday afternoon. We, myself, BTM, and his associates, we have to ask some questions, going back and forth with the communication. I want to make sure that we're not misreading what he's telling us. You know, how we got to nail it down. And of course, this is going through 3 different hands before it gets to me, or 2 different hands before it gets to me. So again, I think there's going to be some more pushing of the envelope, some more steps in this story that we're going to be able to report this week. So today we're going to do our predictions against the spread. Now, and we're also going to talk about, in fact, we're going to open up talking about the Sports Business Journal, Andrew Machard's report of ESPN Disney looking to sell 10% of ESPN, although that number is fluid. It could be a little bit more than 10%. We're going to hit on that story because it indirectly, man, it has a lot to do with the future of college football. Sports in general, but this is college football's peek around the corner, so we got to take a peek, and this is a pretty big deal. Now, we get reports like this in public. Every month, it seems like this is ESPN's plan. This is Disney plan to do with ESPN. Direct to consumer. We get all these reports, and I have selected to kind of stay away from the story. I've been asked on the live show about the story. But when Andrew Machard lays it down like he did today, we got to report on it. I said this is very important for college football's peek around the corner to take a peek at, to talk about it, to do a deep dive into it. And we're going to do it on this show. So we're going to start with that. We're going to do our Week 8 picks. We're going to talk about our Week 7 picks. Greg the Cooler, still Greg the Cooler, and the PATC community still lives in very cold weather. But we'll get to that in a second. I want to thank everybody that's come in to the channel. Jay Go Blue, hi y'all. Thanks for coming on in. James Foster, Go Devils. Go Blue Devils. Big game this week. Duke versus Florida State. And is Riley Leonard going to be ready? I don't think I've got this wrong. I believe there was a report this morning that Coach Elko is listing him as day-to-day. I'm pretty sure I got that right. Hopefully I got that right. Because I'm making my pick on that report. Those are one of the 9 games that we're going to be picking against the spread here in a little bit. Jeff Olson, the Evil Badgers in the house. Tanner Mordecai, the quarterback of Wisconsin, he's injured. I'm getting reports he's out for the rest of the year. I'm getting reports that he's out 4 to 6 weeks. Now, those can be 2 different things, right? I'm also getting the exact same confusion on the huge news that Brock Bowers is getting ankle surgery and he's out for the year or he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. Somebody reported out there he's definitely out for the year. Whatever it is, it's a big, major blow for the Georgia Bulldogs to try to become a 3-time, 3-in-a-row, 3-peat national champions. Brock Bowers, who was in my top 4 Heisman watch. I don't like to see that. I want the superstars of the game that we love to be able to finish the season, to finish it out, to see what happens, to make history. And Brock Bowers is out. We got a lot of other news to cover. A lot of other stuff to get over. Matt Neeson, appreciate you coming on in. PSU Nitwit, boom. Penn State, Ohio State. This Saturday. I got some news about that as well. Bill G is in the house. Mr. Hoosier, Fox should buy ESPN. Daniel Montecastle's in the house. Coy's in the house. Kyle Visser, still talking about the Golden Gopher special teams coach. Dan Lenny, Mario Cristobal. I do not agree with Dan Lenny's decision. I went crazy during the live watch party show, and I'm still convinced that was the wrong move. But almost like everybody else who covers college football, Cover 3, ESPN, they all agree with Coach Lanning on his decision to go for it on 4th and 3 at the 50-yard line. I find that unbelievable. The main point of that for me is Oregon was not, even though they got the ball back, even though after Washington scored, even though they drove down the field and kicked the field, missed the field goal, Oregon was not guaranteed to get the ball back. And everybody, when they describe the situation, they say, well, Oregon's doing the 2-for-1. If they make the first down, they win the game. I agree. But if they miss the first down, Washington scores, they're going to get the ball back. No. There was less than a minute to go. Washington scored quickly because Michael Penix Jr. threw 2 beautiful strikes. Washington could have easily held on to the ball at the end and won the game at the end. It just so happens that Oregon did get the ball back. Good for them. But no, it wasn't a 2-for-1. It wasn't. It wasn't like basketball. Like I've seen a lot of college football YouTube channels and personalities saying It's like having 35 seconds to go on the shot clock. You take a shot, and it's a 2-for-1 situation. It wasn't a it turned out to be one. But it wasn't assured at all that it was going to be a 2-for-1. So if it's not assured that it's a 2-for-1 situation for Oregon, now look at it. I'm sorry. I disagree. Maybe I'm a little too old. Maybe I'm a little bit too much, I don't know. 3 yards on a cloud of dust, Gopher fan, traditionalist. Maybe I'm missing it. But I do not agree with what Coach Lanning called for the Oregon Ducks. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. Ryan Brooks. Look at this. Illinois. Ted is in the house. Illinois. Big win at Maryland. Now they play Wisconsin. Ted, I give you permission. I give you the fat guy from Minnesota, the Godfather. I give you permission to beat the Wisconsin Badgers this weekend as well. You got it. You've got my permission. Let's see who else is in the house. Big Ten Ted, oink oink. Can PJ solve his pig problem? We're going to get into it. That's one of the games we're going to get into. It's going to be, and that's another reason why we're doing the picks today. That's just so, I got like 5 different reasons why we're doing it early. I'm very emotional about this Iowa-Minnesota game. I'm very emotional. The last couple of years, to lose that Iowa game has been a dagger into the maroon and gold heart. Nothing less than that. Nothing less. I'm not being over dramatic. It has been the Minnesota Golden Gophers. If it wasn't for the Iowa Hawkeyes, PJ Fleck would have won 2 Western titles since he's become head coach. Tyler Johnson dropping the ball at the 1. The last 2 games, the Gophers have pushed Iowa around, and they still lose the game because of the unbelievable gap in special teams play. I demand the Minnesota Golden Gophers to go into Iowa City this Saturday, 3:30 Eastern Time, NBC, PATC watch party. I demand the Gophers to beat Iowa. Or for the first time since PJ Fleck has been head coach, I'm going to be on him. I am going to be on him. Look, the Gophers have so many issues. It's not, their special teams is bad. Obvious. We can't throw the ball. Obvious. The back 7 on the defense is not Big Ten caliber, which is different than their other PJ Fleck years. But the Hawkeyes, they've got issues. They've got issues. Immaculate, Big Ten Ted. I know they got a great defense. Their special teams, I know they pull the horseshoe out of the you-know-what, but they've got issues. We can't beat Deacon Hill. We can't. We can't end the streak. It's time to take the Floyd of Rosedale, put it in a box, ship it back to Minneapolis. I demand it. I absolutely demand it. Medea Hernandez Garcia Flugar, the moderator, the one who rules with an iron fist, says welcome to everybody. C. John is in the house. Necromancer Pinball is in the house. NE is in the house. Amazon is one of those possibilities. We're going to get to that story in a second. The Hawkeye is in the house. Georgia is in big trouble. Georgia Bulldogs lost their best player. And I don't know. Is it for the rest of the season? It sure sounds like it. It sure sounds like it. A lot of people in here. Nathan Campbell, thank you, sir, for coming on in. AAR, thank you, appreciate it. Keep chopping. Keep chopping. That sounds like a Rutgers fan. Rutgers going for the 6th win this season already this weekend. Well, we called it a peek around the corner. We called it. Kirk Shiraka, he was going to make the Rutgers offense effective. Effective enough for Shiano to get the Rutgers, the Scarlets, into a bowl game. Doing an incredible job. Immaculate Gophers are going to lose to Iowa, and Iowa will score. The pressure is such.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear.
Paul is in the house. I did not realize until I was in nearly 30 that the Florida Rosedale originated in my hometown. There's a statue of it there now. It's it originated in Iowa, and it's been stuck in Iowa for a very long time. It's ready. It's ready to come on back to Minnesota. Don Scruggs is in the house. Tony, tough Tony. Gopher Tony. 2 things. 1, beat Iowa. 2, steal the goalpost. No, we're not going to do that. Let's just beat Iowa, okay? Let's just beat Iowa. Richard L, good time for our bye week. Mr. Colorado Buffalo's in the house. Very good time for a bye week for Colorado. Still 4-3. Still looking good to make a bowl game. Everything's on course. Anthony Carlson. As a Michigan State Sparty fan, we will do the job and lay down for Michigan. 49-7, my score prediction. Michigan is rolling over everybody. Derek Marie, Michigan 45, Michigan State 7. Michigan Wolverines are having a lot of fun this year. Fighting Illini Ted. It's the Big Ten West. Let's get weird. Illinois Gophers to win this weekend. If the Gophers beat Iowa, the Big Ten West race is wide open. Anybody and everybody can step through that door all the way to Indianapolis, to the Big Ten championship game. And if Illinois beats Wisconsin, so much better. But if Minnesota beats Iowa, they're 6-point underdogs. Just do it. We need the ball to bounce our way. It's time for us to get lucky. A tip pass, a ball goes through Deacon hands on a snap, a punt returner actually fumbles the ball and boots it right into the arm of a Gopher. A field goal hits the pole and actually goes in for the Gophers instead of being knocked out. Something has to happen, right? Something positive has to happen in a Minnesota-Iowa game for our beloved Golden Gophers, right? If not now, when? PJ Fleck, if not now, when? Okay, thanks for everybody coming on in. We got to get to the stories, our picks. I'm already exhausted. Jonathan Weaver's in the house. The pig stays home in Iowa City this week. Go Hawks. Okay, so let's first of all, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Smash the like button. It helps with the algorithm of YouTube so very much for our channel. And share the video with your family and friends. Word of mouth, best advertising. And we stay on the air. We keep the lights on through your donations only. So if you want to help us out, if you want your comments to be put up on the rest of the show, we get to it quickly. Hit that $ sign in the comment section. put it down and we'll talk about it as soon as possible. Let's get to the story here. Andrew Marchand, there's a link provided in the description. A link provided in the description below the video. We're not going to go, it's a small article. I just captured 2 screenshots of it. Disney hopes to find 2 partners for ESPN as it attempts to sell a piece of the sports network in an attempt to look ahead to its future, according to Andrew Marchand of the New York Post. And you guys know how much PATC respects the reporting of Andrew Marchand. Anything he says in public, you've got to keep tabs on it, period. In an attempt to look ahead to its future, according to Andrew Marchand of the New York Post, in an ideal world, ESPN would like a digital company like Apple and a mobile platform such as Verizon to go in together so it can leverage its sports assets with the best distribution channels. It is believed Disney only wants to sell 10% of ESPN, but this number could be fluid. In other words, it could be 15, it could be 20, it could be 25 possibly. It only wants to sell 10, but the number could be fluid. It is also looking ever likelier, putting quotes. This means that Andrew Marchand is being told some really good stuff, some really solid stuff. It is also looking ever likelier that ESPN goes direct to consumer in 2025. That doesn't mean you're not going to be able to get it on your cable package, but you're going to be able to buy it differently than with you just on your cable package or your streaming package that you have now. Though there are clear leaders in distribution with companies like Apple and Amazon, ESPN and Apple would allow it to be pre-installed, we talked about this before, on all Apple devices around the world. And it could become a default app on the company's phones, iPads, and computers, while also being able to further leverage Apple's incredible subscription strength. This could work with many of the top digital players, including Google, YouTube, and Microsoft. Okay? We're going to skip down here a little bit. If Apple wants to be, and I think this is the PATC money shot of this article. If Apple wants to be a big player in sports on its own, it would take at least another decade. And there would be no guarantees. The same sort of equation holds true for the Verizons and the T-Mobiles on the mobile side. If Apple wants to be a big player in sports on its own, it would take at least another 10 years. And then there would still be no guarantee. We saw it play out where Apple TV, yes, they got the MLS deal. They own all of it. They're trying to sell subscriptions. Lionel Messi was brought into Miami's MLS team. Great success. Within that deal, Lionel Messi was able to get some of the profit coming from Apple TV subscriptions. It's like Apple TV and Miami worked together to get Lionel Messi in. So even that, Apple TV couldn't quite do it alone, even though they have all the content, even though they own all the MLS content, they had to give some of that money away to Lionel Messi. Now, we saw it play out with Apple and Pac-12. There's a couple of people kind of like the deal, the possibility of the deal, the idea of the deal that Apple was presenting in the Pac-12. But most of the people in the Pac-12, as we reported to you all throughout the whole saga, they didn't like it. They didn't like it. They didn't want it. They didn't trust it. Digital, it's not quite on the come yet. It could happen 5 years from now, 4 years from now. It could be the future. It probably will be the future. Probably. But in this article, Andrew Michon basically laying it out. Look, if Apple wants to go alone, if they want to continue just to go after these big sports packages in professional sports and collegiate sports, and if they go on their own, it's going to take another 10 years, and there's no guarantees even in that. But if Apple TV and a Verizon mobile, Apple TV digital streaming, if they can combine and grab 10% of ESPN from Disney, Disney sells it to them, and they can work together, that could be of a great advantage. Give Disney great leverage for distribution with Apple, just the money that they've got, and then ESPN, the brand, and then of course Disney worldwide, international wide, just like Apple. It could work out. It could work out. I'm going to keep a tab on this story because Andrew Michon, the way he wrote it, released it today, I think there's some big time smoke behind this possibility. This could be a fantastic situation for Disney, for ESPN. And this could affect college football. Obviously, it would affect college football. And it would affect those schools, SEC. Those schools, ESPN owns all their content. ACC, ESPN owns all their distribution content. Big 12, ESPN controls 50% of their content. More in football, less in basketball, basically 50%. And if you look towards 6 or 7 years from now, if ESPN can get this type of distribution, this deal with, Disney, with selling 10% or more of ESPN to Verizon, let's say, and to an Apple, it could be a big inducive. It could spell more expansion. It could be very favorable. Some schools could look at that situation very favorable or not. Maybe it's still not on the come in 6 to 7 years, the digital world. Maybe schools still find security, exposure along the lines of CBS, Fox, and NBC. We got to take a peek at this. We're taking a peek at this. I want to get your comments later in the show on this. But when Andrew Michon lays it down, we take it seriously. There's been a lot of other reports about this over the months. It keeps changing. It's ever fluid. We understand that. I haven't made a point of doing a show on it. I thought today would be a great day. When the article came out, I said, that's it. We're talking about it. Andrew Michon, yes, we're talking about it. Okay. Let's get to the selections. Now, first of all, last week, we got to go through this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to, but we got to get through it. Florida State, Syracuse, the PATC community took the Seminoles. I took the Seminoles. We both got this right, minus 17.5. They covered. Oregon and Washington. Wow. Well, PATC community covered. I covered that, and thank you, Coach Lanning, I guess. Washington won by 3 points. We've talked about that game. Holy smokes. And the Texas A&M Tennessee game. The PATC community took the Tennessee Volunteers. 60% of you. I took Texas A&M. Shame on me. Shame on me. So far this week, I'm 2-1, and the PATC community is 3-0. Miami, Florida versus North Carolina, -3.5. Carolina wins by 10. It was a much bigger spread than that until the end. Carolina covers. I'm 3-1. You guys, the PATC community is 4-0. USC, we both took USC. How stupid are we? The PATC community took USC. I took USC. Notre Dame absolutely trucked them. Knocked them over, put dirt on them, and hit them again. Can USC come back this week? They got an important game this week. We shall see. But we both got this wrong. So, PATC community is 4-1, and I am 3-2. Whoops. Arkansas, Alabama, the PATC community. 59% of you took Arkansas. I took Alabama. So now you're 5-1. And I'm 3-3. Kansas, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State covers. We both lose Kansas. And I tell you, every time I pick a Kansas game, I get it wrong. If I take Kansas, they won't cover. If I take Kansas not to cover, they cover. Every single week. The Jayhawks are killing me. They're killing me. So that puts the PATC community at 5-2. That puts me at 3-4. Illinois, Maryland. Well, we both got Maryland wrong. We both got crunched on that one. Holy smokes. And the West Virginia Mountaineers and Houston. I got Houston right on the Hail Mary. You guys got West Virginia Mountaineers wrong. So the PATC community went 5-4. And I went 4-5. So what does that make us? The PATC community against the spread with your votes each week are 23, 30, and 2. And the fat guy from Minnesota is 24, 9, and 2. I am 1 game ahead. Greg the Cooler is 1 game ahead of the PATC community. It's been very, very rough for all of us here against the spread. It's been a killer. Let's go with your comments first of all here, and then we're going to pick the games for this week. One of us, the PATC community or myself, one of us has got to get hot. One of us has got to have a great week. Let it be this week, week number 8. Tony, Apple can outbid Disney for any content they want. Still doesn't make that people want to go to Apple though. That was the problem with the Pac-12. Not sure why a company like Apple would want to tie themselves to a struggling brand of 10%. 4 or 5 months ago, Disney was trying to get a partnership with the leagues, NFL, NBA. No takers. That's true. They were trying to do that. I don't know if those negotiations are continuing. Maybe there was some takers, but not at the price that Disney was willing to go for. We'll see what happens there. But that's a very good point, Tony. Very good point. Cameron B, Disney needs to clear house and refocus their brand. Don Scruggs, UNC and Georgia on a collision course happening in the Natty. Wow. Not a whole lot of support for Disney in the chat room. Matt says I would go with Amazon. Okay, so let's go to the picks for this week. Now, last week, the PATC community picked first. I picked second. This week, I'm going to pick first, and the PATC community is going to pick second. We're going to alternate every single week because some wise person sent me a direct message and said, Greg, you're killing the Pac-12 community because you're always picking first. It heavily influences us on your bad picks. So I let the PATC community pick first, and you guys went 5-4 last week. But now this week, I'm going to pick first. So I'm going to bring you guys down to my level. With my bad picks, I'm going to influence you all and bring you back down to my level. Okay, so here we go. Let's get going here. Black Rain, Texas is going to crush Houston 77-10. Wow. That's one of the games we're picking. Let's go. Let's get to it. Here we go. Air Force, Navy, Air Force, minus an 11.5 points on the road. If Air Force wins out, if they win the Mountain West Championship, Air Force is going to be in the G5. They're going to be in a New Year's Bowl game. They're going to be the representative of all G5 schools and conferences. Minus 11.5. I'm taking Navy. I'm taking the 11.5. Air Force going to win? Sure. But not, look. Air Force, I'm talking about a football program. I'm not talking about the great service that they do for our country. So when I say the word pressure, I'm talking about in sports. Air Force, the pressure on the football program, there's a pathway for them right now to get to a New Year's Bowl, and I think they're not going to quite. I don't have them covering this. I think it's going to be a close game. Air Force is going to win, but I got Navy plus 11.5 points. Texas and Houston. Wow. There's going to be a lot of emotion. Houston, Big 12. This is their one Big 12 game against Texas. It's at home. Houston just won Thursday night with a Hail Mary. Texas Longhorns, difficult loss to Oklahoma. A couple weeks ago. Texas is giving up 22.5 points. 22.5 points. That's a lot of points. And I think, and I said this about Houston and West Virginia. Houston, they're not as good as West Virginia. I mean, you could tell on the line of scrimmage. Houston's got that one defensive tackle, number 10. He was making plays behind the line of scrimmage. But for the most part, I got to take Texas. I'm sorry, Cougar fans. I got to take Texas. I think Texas is going to take it out on Houston. Texas, the burnt orange, minus 22.5. That was a tough one, I got to tell you. 22.5 points is a lot playing at Houston. But at the end of I don't think the Cougars are going to be making many tackles in the fourth quarter. Texas is going to put up a whole lot of points late in that game. Utah, USC. Can USC come back after getting trucked by Notre Dame? Can they show the character? Can they show the integrity? Can they show the grit? The grit to stay close to Utah, win the game in the end, but will they cover the 6.5? I don't think so. I've got Utah. I've got USC winning the game. I've got USC winning the game, but I got Utah plus 6.5, even without Cameron Rising. Tennessee and Alabama. The Tennessee Volunteers. I went against them last week. Shame on me. I didn't think they were going to cover. They did cover. Alabama, I took Alabama. I took them to cover, and they did not. I am not making the same mistake 2 weeks in a row. No way. I'm taking Tennessee. Plus 8.5. The Volunteers going to cover this week. 8.5. Let's do it, Tennessee. Let's do it. Minnesota versus the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Floyd of Rosedale. The pig. Iowa doesn't lose to Minnesota. Minnesota doesn't defeat Iowa. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be doing a watch party. Minnesota, Iowa. I believe we're going to do the Buckeyes and the Lions before, so it's going to be a doubleheader smashed together. I'm going to be on the air for 8 hours in a row. Minnesota and Iowa, there's a very good chance, I'm going to be carted out on a stretcher. Taken into an ambulance, taken to the nearest hospital. Where my wife cooks, by the way, so she can cook me up some good food as I'm laying there battling for my life. This game is going to take me down. It's going to take me down no matter which way it goes. But I want to go out a winning, for God's sakes. I'm taking the Minnesota Golden Gophers plus 5.5. Minnesota, baby. Let's do it. It's got to happen. It's not one of those things. It needs to happen. Completely emotional pick. In me, 100% emotional pick. Oklahoma State versus the Mountaineers. Man, oh man, what's going on at Oklahoma State? 2 good weeks in a row. Mountaineers lose the crusher. I did not want to pick against the Mountaineers last week. And I did. And I got lucky. It would have been lucky. Whoever covered that spread. I mean, the way that West Virginia came down and scored. I mean, the Houston Cougars secondary looked like Keystone Cops out there knocking into each other. It hurts me to do this again, but I'm taking the Cowboys plus 3. They have a pulse. Bowman, the quarterback, they have a pulse. Obviously, it's going to be a very close game. Something's going to go wrong with West Virginia. They had a bunch of guys out last week. It sounds like they're going to have them back this week. I'm taking Oklahoma State and the Cowboys to cover. Plus 3.5. So, I'm sorry, +3. +3. I didn't want to do it. I did not want to do it. Duke versus Florida State. My goodness. Now, if we were doing this later in the week, we would know more about the health of Riley Leonard. Trying to come back from a high ankle sprain. And Florida State's quarterback is all nicked up. I think Jordan Travis is probably going to be fine. But we don't know about Riley Leonard. And because of that, I know he's day to day. He's going to get hit. Against the Seminoles. I'm going to take Florida State -13.5. If I had a better feel about Riley Leonard, I might be taking Duke in this. But I can't do it. I cannot do it. Clemson, Miami of Florida. Wow. Miami of Florida, I don't know what to say. 2 weeks ago, Mary Cristobal, you didn't take the knee. You did not take accountability. We don't have to go through that again. I watched the Miami, Florida, North Carolina game from bell to bell. And Miami, Florida has issues. They have got issues. I got to take Clemson -3.5. Tyler Van Dyke is so inconsistent. Not just for us fans watching it, but for the players themselves. And Miami and Florida don't have the greatest wide receiver room. That's one of the problems. Their running attack, for whatever reason, is not as strong as it should be, or as I thought it would be. Clemson's going to cover that game. -3.5. And then finally, Penn State Nittany Lions versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm going to do this real quick. Everybody knows. I'm sorry, Jerry Jones, Mr. Buckeye. I'm sorry, Mona Vision, Mr. Buckeye. I'm sorry to the Penn State Nittany Lion fans because Greg the Cooler is just about to pick Penn State. They're going to cover this game. They're going to win this game. Penn State's going to win the Big Ten Championship. Penn State's going to the college football playoffs. Penn State's going to win the national championship. And everybody's going to become a true believer this Saturday, 12 o'clock noon, 11 o'clock Central. Penn State defeats the Buckeyes. So, of course, I'm taking 4.5 points on my way to the cash window. What do you think about that? So I got Navy, Texas, Utah, Tennessee, Minnesota, Oklahoma State, Florida State, Clemson, and Penn State. Now, let's get to your picks. Kirk Bender, agree to disagree on that. The Buckeyes, Nittany Lions game. Jared Jones, Greg, my man, say it ain't so. Picking against my Buckeyes in Columbus. Yes, I am, Jared Jones. Yes, I am. And we're going to be doing a watch party. 11 o'clock noon, 12 o'clock Eastern this Saturday. Buckeyes, Lions, Gophers, those Hawkeyes this Saturday. So come join us if you're not in Columbus in the stadium watching the game. If you're at home watching it, tune us in as well. Okay, we got to get to you guys' picks here. You guys got a lot of work to do. You got to think about this now. You're one game behind me. You're only one game behind me in the standings. You can do it. You can pull ahead. Air Force, Navy. Here we go. Does Air Force cover minus 11.5 point spread? Whoops. Versus Navy. The voting starts now. The voting starts now. Giving you 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Big 87% on Air Force. Holy smokes. That's the second highest of the year so far. The second highest of the year with your votes going to one team covering the spread. The highest was last week when 88% of the PATC community voted West Virginia to cover the spread against Houston. You got that wrong. I think you're going to get this wrong. But you all have Air Force minus 11.5. Thank you, Sergeant Pickles. Bow down to Washington. Thank you for your super chat. The artist formerly known as the Big Ten West. Better watch out. The dogs are a-coming. Yes, they are. They're coming next year. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for teams like Minnesota, Illinois, Purdue. It's going to be rough. Hopefully, you guys bringing in, I believe you got a true freshman quarterback. I always forget his name. His name is Blake something, or he's supposed to be really good. Hopefully, you guys slow down a little bit next year. You and USC and Oregon, because you're all losing your quarterbacks. But we'll see. Once again, though, we're not going to be two divisions. We're going to be one conference. It's going to be a lot of fun. Sergeant Pickles, thank you so much for your generosity to this channel. I appreciate it so very much. So very much. Austin Mack. I keep forgetting Austin Mack. Jeez, what is wrong with me? I'm going to write that down. Austin Mack. What did I call him? Blake? Austin Mack. Holy smokes. The mind is gone. Matt Neeson. Penn State will lose since Greg the Cooler picked them. Can we just talk about something before we get to you guys' second pick, Texas and Houston? I'm the one, Greg the Cooler, who picked Penn State, Florida State, Washington, and Georgia to go to the college football playoffs. Before the season started. A couple months before the season started. And now everybody's predictions now, projections, have at least 3 of those teams in the college football playoffs. Brett McMurphy, Action Network. He has Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and Georgia. He's got 3 of the 4. Everybody's got 3 of the 4, pretty much. I had it at the beginning of the season. And guess what? I'm going to go 4 for 4, baby. 4 for 4. And the realization of that is all going to settle in after this Saturday when Penn State beats Ohio State in Columbus. Okay, enough of me bragging about something I haven't even gotten correct yet. Okay, here we go. Let's get to pick number 2. Let's get through these things. That's wrong. Okay, here we go. Does Texas cover minus 22.5 point spread versus Houston? This is going to be interesting. Very interesting voting. Does Texas Longhorns cover the 22.5 point spread? The voting starts now. The voting starts now. Going to give it 10 seconds. 10 more seconds. Three, two, one. 61% says yes. You guys have taken Texas minus 22.5. Wow, that surprises me. Tony says the meteorologist baffled by a stationary cold front over northern Minneapolis. You're killing me, Tony. You're killing me. Okay, let's get to the next one. You guys took Texas. So far, Air Force in Texas. Woo! Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Does USC cover minus 6.5 point spread versus Utah? Does USC cover the 6.5 point spread versus Utah? The voting starts now. Ten more seconds. It doesn't look good for USC. According to the PATC community, 3, 2, 1. USC does not cover. Does not cover. PATC community takes Utah. I guess that doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me too much here. Now, Alabama versus Tennessee. Does Alabama cover? Does Alabama cover the 8.5 point spread versus Tennessee? The voting starts now. David M. says Milton will save Bama. Immaculate did pick USC. He was in the minority in the PATC community. Peter Johnson says Cam is out for the season and will apply for a waiver. Giving you all 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 70% of you picked Tennessee to cover. Okay? Now, here's the game that you all should get right. It should be 100% one way. Well, except for Immaculate. He's about the only person who should get this wrong. Does Iowa cover minus 5.5 point spread versus Minnesota? You guys know how to vote on this one. And if you don't know how to vote, I'm going to be stuffing the ballot box. Does Iowa cover minus 5.5 point spread versus Minnesota? The vote begins now. It's close. It's the closest vote we've had so far today. It's in the margin of error. I could stuff the ballot box right now. It's back. It's close. I'm giving 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 53% of you took Iowa. Oh no. PATC community lets me down. They killing me. You're killing me. How can you take the Hawkeyes? You know this is it. You know this is it. Of course. Yeah, no. You guys have got it wrong. Eisman 57. Hey Greg, please sing the Hawkeye fight song when the Gophers lose this weekend. Let's make it an annual PATC tradition. Thank you for the super chat, Eisman. The rule is you got to be the underdog. You got to be the underdog. Then if you made a donation, you win. Then I sing you song. I was not the underdog in this game. Nope. So it can't be a tradition. Sorry, Eisman, but thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate your generosity. Your continued generosity of this program. Appreciate it very much. Eisman 57, probably the vote that put over Iowa, over Minnesota. Immaculate says Iowa wins the 3 safeties. Thank you, Eisman. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much, sir. Okay. Let's get to the next one. Oklahoma State, West Virginia. Does West Virginia cover at home in Morgantown -3 point spread versus Oklahoma State? Does West Virginia cover the -3 point spread versus Oklahoma State? The voting starts now. I think this is going to be close. This has got to be close, right? 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 Immaculate says you have a smart community, Greg. Yeah, they're smart. No question about it, but I think they've hit the sauce early today. Early. Yeah, this is a close vote, as I thought. Does West Virginia cover the -3 point spread versus Oklahoma State? This could go either way. I'm giving it 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 52-48. The PATC community takes Oklahoma State. Takes Oklahoma State, a very close vote, just like the Iowa, Minnesota. Wow. Here we go. We got a couple big ones left. Interesting game. Again, we do not know Riley's, Leonard's. We don't know either quarterback's health going into this game as of this Monday. Does Florida State cover minus 13.5 point spread versus Duke? The voting starts now. Go Black says this game should be a pick'em. Jose says Mondays are made for hitting the sauce early. Indeed, Dave Chauncey, West Virginia at home. It will be juiced in Morgantown. No question about that. Absolutely correct. Mr. Buckeyes got West Virginia. BR7062's got the Pokes. Close vote. Close vote. I'm going to give it 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The noes has it. 56% of the vote. The community takes Duke. Duke to cover. They believe Riley Leonard's going to be okay. And if he's okay, I can see Duke covering that. No question about it. I can see Duke covering that. But Leonard's got to be okay. All right. Here we go. Does Clemson cover minus 3.5 point spread versus Miami, Florida? The voting starts now. Pretty strong voting going one way so far. Immaculate. Duke is impressive this year. But Florida State's talent level, maybe just a little bit too much for the Duke Blue Devils. Black Rain, Florida State wins, but nervous of a Seminole letdown. Tony says, Lewis, the legend, speaks. I'm going to give you 5 more seconds on the Clemson-Miami vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, Clemson. PATC community takes Clemson to cover. And now for the last game. The final game on this slate for the PATC community to vote on. Wow. Holy smokes. The Buckeyes, number 3 in the land. Penn State Nittany Lions, number 7 in the land. Does Ohio State cover minus 4.5 point spread versus Penn State? I'm going to give a little extra time. A little extra time for you all to vote on this. Does the Buckeyes cover the 4.5 point spread versus the Nittany Lions? The voting begins now. Ryan Brooks, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, about to do a circular firing squad. Tony says, I'll go the opposite of the cooler. Immaculate. Yep, at home, this is a huge game for Ohio State. I think we see the real Ohio State in this one. Going to give a little extra time. On the voting on this one. I want to make sure the PATC community has the opportunity to think about it, to actually get this one correct. Remember, the PATC community is one game behind myself, which is not good. Not good at all. So far this year. I'm going to give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 64% of the voters took the Ohio State Buckeyes to cover against Penn State. Holy smokes. I got to say, I'm going to be very honest with you all. You guys did horrible this week. Absolutely horrible. Horrible. Yes, you PATC community. You got it all wrong. All of it. Okay, I took Navy. You took Air Force. I've got Texas. You got Texas. I got Utah. You got Utah. I got Tennessee. You got Tennessee. I got Minnesota. And you guys took Iowa. We both got Oklahoma State. I took Florida State. You took Duke. We both took Clemson. I took Penn State. You got Ohio State. Holy cow. Wow. Let's open up the phone lines. Community of geniuses. Yeah, well, that's probably so. But I'm going to take a shot at you right now. Let's open up the phone lines. You can talk about the ESPN. Talk about anything in college football. The big story we covered today, and we felt like we had to cover it, was Andrew Machard's article in the New York Post, Sports Business Journal, Andrew Machard, talking about how Disney is looking to sell 10%, although that number can be fluid, 10% of ESPN to 2 partners. Not one, but 2 partners, equaling that 10%, a mobile partner and a high, impactful digital partner, possibly an Apple, possibly an Amazon. So let me open up the phone lines. I don't have them open yet. Now they're open. 763-260-1333. And of course, you can talk about anything college football, these games coming up this week. We already made our predictions for next weekend. We've locked them in. Hopefully the PATC community or myself, we can go on a big run this week. One of us tries to get close to 500 for the year. One of us, let's hope. Talk about it. The Buckeyes, Penn State. Look, Penn State needs to have an explosive play early in that game against the Buckeyes. Offensively, they need to make the Buckeyes feel like they can go beat them deep. They need to take the cap off the defense. They need to get the Buckeyes on their heels a little bit. Franklin's offense needs to do that this Saturday. They've got the guy, eventually at least, but they got the guy now, I think, in Drew Allen to get it done. Penn State needs to make a big play offensively early in the game, just to put the threat out there against the Buckeyes. They got to hit a shot. They got to hit a shot early in that game. That's how I thinking about the Penn State game. And the Duke-Florida State game, if Riley Leonard, if he can get his feet under him, if he can get ready for that game, Duke's going to give Florida State all they can handle. all they can handle. Marvin Harrison will have a breakout game. Every game is a breakout game for the unguardable one, Marvin Harrison. Richard Salino, I'll take the Buckeyes at the shoe. No way, Greg. What's colder, Greg picks or the Minnesota winner? It's going to get cold here. Yeah, it's going to get cold here pretty soon, real soon. Tony, he's the only guy who's got my back. The only one who's got my back. Minnesota, let's go. David M., that's it. PATC community will have a perfect week. Thanks, Greg. Thanks. Ted Evans, Washington only got two first place votes. Come on, man. I guess Washington fans, it should have been more than two, but I'm a big Washington guy. Obviously, before this season and during the season, and I'm completely sold on him. I'm completely sold on Grubb, the coordinator. I'm completely sold on the whole thing. And I would not have a first place vote with Washington. For me, it's a mixture of everything. If I was a voter, an AP voter, it'd be a mixture of everything. What they've done on the field, what I think they're going to do next week, mainly what they've accomplished. But there has to be a little bit of earned respect. Like, if I was an AP voter, and I know this is going to go against what a lot of you would do, and I get it, but I got to have Georgia number one. Now, with Brock Bowers injured, and if Georgia, they get a week off this week, I believe. They're off this week. And then they play Florida. I don't remember who they play after this week. But if they, I don't want to say until they lose, I would drop them. If they struggle 2 weeks from now, it's hard for me to pick anybody number one right now. That's what I'm saying. Georgia, they're the number one team until I see it differently, and I don't quite see it differently yet. Although I don't have them winning it, I got Penn State winning it. I can see voters picking Washington. I can see Michigan, even though Michigan's schedule has been easy. Still, you do not go through an easy schedule like that, like the way they've done it without being a great football team. They are absolutely stacked. The Michigan Wolverines are absolutely stacked. And the Buckeyes, and it's hard for, I can understand it either way. I get it if you're a Washington fan. You're a little bit discouraged, only getting 2 votes. But win them all, and you got no one's going to stop the Washington Huskies from going to the college football playoffs. Losing one of them before the Pac-12 championship, and then you win the Pac-12 championship, I still think Washington will get into the college football playoffs, or the chances are very good. Again, the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. And the other subject, Michael Penix Jr., he's a leader in the clubhouse right now for the Heisman Trophy. Brock Bowers looks to be out for the year. Tanner Mordecai out for the year, or maybe not coming back until the end of the year. It looks like Air Force has got an inside track to be the G5 representative in the New Year's Bowl. And We got some information from Florida State Money Perch. We talked about it in my monologue before we went through the picks, before we went through the Sports Journal story. We got some questions on it. So we're going back and forth. I hope to have that later in the week. I would have loved to be able to present what he told us today. He gave it to us yesterday. But that would have been unfair to you all because some of it was disjointed. We've asked some questions. Hopefully, I think we're going to get some answers back. We might have already gotten some answers back. And I'll go over that tomorrow or Wednesday. It's in and around Florida State. It's not about anything else. It's just about Florida State, the Money Perch. But we haven't gotten any information about Florida State in a while. In regards, we did get some through other means. SEC, Greg Sankey is in the Holy Smokes Theater. He entered, but I'm talking direct information from the Money Perch on what he was told. Oh, how do I want to say it? Let's just say in and around some establishments in Tallahassee. He was told some real solid information. It has to do with Florida State, the Holy Smokes Theater. So we're going to be talking about that later this week. I wanted to make sure that we got our picks done for today, lock them in, talk about the games going on next weekend today. We'll get back to your comments. Again, the phone lines are open. If you want to talk about anything in college football, 763-260-1333. Richard Salino, I hope Oregon plays Washington again in the conference championship game in Vegas on a neutral field. That would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. Immaculate, I would love to see Northern Illinois raised up.
Call from
Attorney Dave.
Attorney Dave is on the line. The floor is yours. What do you got to say, Attorney Dave? Nice to hear from you again.
Hey, Greg. Thank you for the floor. And yeah, you know, I was thinking about what you're talking about here today about ESPN, and I can't help but think, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, that I know ESPN isn't in the theater yet, but ESPN has to play almost the most important role in this whole issue with the ACC moving forward. And what I mean by that is, if the ACC, if ESPN and whatever, you know, the future of ESPN looks like, doesn't reassure the ACC that without several of these schools that they're not going to try to renegotiate their deal, you know, that would be catastrophic for the ACC. So if UNC and FSU and Clemson and you know, Virginia Tech are all leaving, or UVA or whoever it is at that point, then you're truly in a situation where it's apocalyptic for the ACC, and they have to stand strong. But ESPN seems to be the one that could reassure them that you know, that they will stand by them. But it would be somehow making sure that the ESPN's interests are, you know, really kept you know, in mind at that point. So I just can't. I'm still failing to see. I'm still failing to see how these schools, other than maybe it's just putting up so much money that the ACC can't say no, but how these schools can get out without some sort of reassurance, or ESPN at least being on the inside of the situation to make sure that ESPN's interests, the ACC's interests, are both kept in priority. I'm interested to just get your thoughts on that.
I agree with you. I would emphasize the schools that do not have any perceived chance of joining the SEC or the Big Ten. Those schools are going to have to be satisfied. Your Wake Forest, your Boston College, they're going to have to look at whatever deal comes down the pike, and they're going to have to say, yeah, our future is better if we deal now instead of deal with this later. They have to be, they have to come to that conclusion. The deal has to be sweet enough for them. You know, if the deal is, yeah, we're all going to pocket a whole lot of money, we can pay off a whole bunch of debt, we can pay off our facility, and we remain a power for autonomy, and we get the playoff distribution money just the same as much as the other three, all this stuff, right? Their pots have got to be sweetened a lot to do a deal within the next 3 years. And then you go to your point of ESPN. They got to make sure it's good for them. They got to give assurances to Wake Forest. It isn't about two media companies like it was in the Big 12 with only 1 year left of the Gore, where ESPN and Fox had to be made whole and everything. This is ESPN. They're the only distributors of the content of ACC. Or although CW, whatever, you know, that's part of that too. But
right,
you're right. You're right.
That off, but.
You're right, and I would take it a step further, saying that, you know, the Wake Forest they have to be satisfied. I do have a suspicion, though, more than a suspicion, that the perception of the schools that are looking to get out, that they all lay down a certain amount of money, it all gets totaled up. I think their perception is, how can these other schools in the ACC turn that down, especially when the futures are going to be secured, unlike a couple teams in the Pac-12, what just happened to them.
Right. Yeah, no, and it's interesting because I think that these discussions about the ACC and the ability for the ACC to feel secure in their future, it all revolves around ESPN. ESPN, even if we're talking about $1 billion, for example, when you're feeding 13 mouths, it's a decent amount of money, but it's small in comparison to if ESPN says, "Oh, we got to renegotiate this deal because you guys don't have any more premier brands in college football."
Sure.
So I mean, if you're thinking about it, what the ACC teams are each making about $40 million per year at this point. I mean, even if you had $1 billion and you split that 13 ways, that's somewhere in like the $70 million range for a one-time payment, or maybe that's even payment over time. So I don't know if that's something that, I mean, surely if they felt like they had no other option, you take the money over something in the alternative. But I think that those schools, like you said, they're so important because they have to feel like ESPN is going to honor that deal moving forward and not say that it has substantially changed to the point that they can break the deal and break the grant of rights and all these things that are holding the league together, because at that point, then that's the end of the ACC likely. And so ESPN, I think that you're talking about ESPN today means a lot because of the fact that whether it's Greg Sankey, who's not going to cross ESPN, right? I mean, he's not. This is Disney ESPN. They are his partner for the next 12 years. Through the duration of his commissionership at this point. He's not going to be doing anything that ESPN doesn't want or that ESPN's not willing to pay for. ESPN is at the center of all this, and if ESPN wants to make something happen, if Disney or whoever their partners end up being want to make something happen, it feels like at this point that's the most logical way of moving the pieces around. If the SEC is really interested in a North Carolina or a Florida State, that's the most easy transition right there. Or rather than it being some sort of, I'm having a hard time seeing how they get it done without ESPN saying, yes, we'll make sure that this happens, and we'll move the pieces around and honor the rest of this contract through 2036.
I agree with you. And I think, how do I say this? If the ACC implodes, now I'm just going to say general statement, okay? It doesn't mean I'm declaring anything. It doesn't mean I'm reporting anything. But if the ACC implodes, let's say 3 or 4 schools make an announcement first quarter 2024 that they're announcing their intentions of leaving the conference. They're looking for a settlement, whatever that is, okay? If it happens like first quarter 2024, the earlier that happens on the timeline between now and 2036, the more the chances, and I'm talking generally, the more the chances that the SEC eats first, ESPN eats first, because of everything you just said, right? Because for this to unravel, ESPN has to play at least an invisible hand, if not a hand that's out there in public, to move all the pieces.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I will say, to the other side of that, we do know, people can take this however they want to take it. We do know, we've been told that the SEC, and other people know this as well, the SEC is now more proactive on this ACC implosion story. So does that mean they're getting their chips lined up? Does that mean that ESPN is in the Holy Smokes Theater? We can't quite say that yet, but there is some stuff going on because they believe that the Big Ten has gotten more, definitely, I'll say that, definitely have gotten more aggressive with these non-directive talks in between the parties. So there is some, Attorney Dave, I agree with you. It looks like, to me, logically, it lines up way better for the pieces to be moved that would benefit the interests of the SEC and the ESPN. Right?
Right. Well,
but,
I think if everyone's talking about things moving quickly, like you said, if everyone's talking about first quarter of 2024, we're talking about 2025, something being in place in 2026, it would just be a lot easier, and could be facilitated, I think, actually pretty easily. If ESPN were to say, we're gonna, ACC, don't worry, we'll take care of you, we'll make sure that these things continue. We're honoring the contract, but UNC and FSU and Clemson and UVA are moving to the SEC, and we have this long-term deal with the SEC as well. This is in our interest. It's in your interest, and you're going to get a lump sum payment, and we're going to keep paying you. Right? There's something there. Well, I've been racking my brain listening to you over the last even few weeks here, and just, man, like if it gets to an existential crisis, like FSU feels like they're in an existential crisis, if the ACC feels like it's in an existential crisis, and those other schools do, it's going to be messy. And I know people want to act like it's not going to be messy. Somehow that folks are going to just step down and not want to fight. But we have not seen a situation like this. We've seen other situations. We've seen what happened with the PAC, and with their content. And we're even seeing how messy that is with the current litigation that's going on, even over the money that's remaining. And they'll end up coming to some sort of agreement just because they all want to move on. But to think that there's not going to be a lot of litigation, a lot of issues, and to think that this is just going to be some deal that's concocted in the next 365 days feels very, very far-fetched to me at this point. Without ESPN playing a really, really vital role to that.
I will leave you with this, Attorney Dave. Part of the information Florida State Money Perch gave us in the last 24 hours, which I'm not going to report on it yet because we have questions about it. The year 2026 was within the information he told us. I'm just going to say that 2026 was in the information he told us.
Right. That's the new year of the playoff contract that will be coming up here.
Yeah.
So for the negotiations.
Yeah. And I'm just going to, a lot of people might have some issues. I did, some people, how aggressive Florida State came out and talked, how the Board of Trustees came out and talked, Peter Collins and the rest of them, and how they came out in February 2023. Mike Alford talked, and I can assure you, there's been back channel talks. Florida State knows they're one of the targets of the Big Ten. Ross Dellinger just reported that Florida State and North Carolina and Clemson and Virginia, those ACC schools were on Kevin Warren's desirable and attainable list, right? I don't know if you read that article.
Yep.
What? Mm-hmm. I guess at the end of the day, it has cost Florida State nothing so far in trying to create an atmosphere of, hey, we might be going, hey, Big Ten, hey, look, we look, everybody better watch out. We might be, it's cost them nothing for this brinkmanship so far. Maybe a little bit of reputation, whatever. And it might be actually working. Maybe.
Right.
Because Sankey's in the Holy Smokes Theater, can't get much more into that. Maybe it has started moving these big blocks that we didn't think was going to get moved.
Right. Yeah, I know. Certainly, it's they've definitely pushed the conversation along, and they're trying to create leverage. Right. The more chaos that there is, the more chance that there could be some sort of situation where they can find a way out. At the same time, the more chaos they create, or some of the folks with them, the more opportunity there is for them to push that big red button and set off a chain of events that they can't control anymore. So talk is good and it's fun, and it's definitely fun for us to pay attention to. It would just be interesting to see, like we talked about with the PAC, and whether they give up rights to vote on things. If Florida State ends up saying that they're going to leave, I mean, do they give up rights to certain voting interests? Do they give up things before they're even gone, or even have negotiated a settlement? Yeah, and could they be left out in the cold, like where they can't necessarily move from the ACC to somewhere else because there's all this pending litigation? It's just it can get messy, and that's why it feels like right now is that kind of that exciting point, even in like we're ready to fight type litigation feel to it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, as somebody who does a lot of litigation, there's a lot of points in the middle of that where people are like, why the heck am I spending so much money, and why is this such a difficult process? And you say, well, we tried to tell you at the beginning it was going to be a difficult process. There was a lot of risk to this thing, but you wanted to fight, so we fought. And so I'm sure that's what their attorneys are telling them, but they feel like they're in an existential crisis. I guess my question is, was the ACC feels like it's in an existential crisis, how are they even going to find a deal? So we'll see. But
all right.
Keep up the good work, Greg. I appreciate it. You're one of the best folks to listen to about these topics and just college football generally. Appreciate all you do.
Appreciate it, Attorney Dave. Thanks for the call. Call again. Our very own PATC attorney, Attorney Dave. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ernie Day brings up a lot of good points. A lot of elbows are being thrown in the chat room between the Hawkeyes and the Gophers. I tell you what, it's going to be a tough week. The emotions are running high, and it's only a Monday.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate Mr. Hawkeye is in. He has the floor. Immaculate, you have the floor. I'm not going to try to get too emotional during this phone call. I'm just going to tell you, either way, whatever happens Saturday, a 40 blowout win for the Hawkeyes, a 40-point blowout win for the Gophers, or a winning field goal, either way, I'm going to be carried out on a stretcher out of the studio into the nearest hospital. My wife will then jump on here and give everybody the information. If you want to send me flowers or her flowers, I would appreciate it. Immaculate, the floor is yours.
Well, first off, I'm going to dare to try and do a follow-up call to Dave, because that's tough ground right there to follow him up. But
yeah.
Second, I'm just here to try to help you understand, so that way, when the time comes, it's not as shocking, right?
Got it.
We don't want anything bad to happen to you just because Iowa wins with 3 safeties, just barely making the cover, and Minnesota ends up with nothing.
Yeah, no, I get it.
That would be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be
tough. I just thought first thing I want to talk about with folks is how to watch Iowa and how to appreciate it, because it seems to me like there's a lot of people out there that don't get it.
Yeah.
Would you say that's pretty safe?
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and I still don't get it. So, no, I completely, I understand where you're coming from. There is greatness in that college football program. There is greatness. Yes.
You have to learn to not follow the camera.
Yeah.
Like, wherever the camera is pointing and telling you to watch, you got to learn to not follow that.
Yeah.
You got to find like 1 or 2 favorite people on defense that are just plain amazing.
Yeah.
And just watch them.
Yeah.
Like Castro is the guy I watch right now, and it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the camera is just going to point you at whatever's going on offensively, and so people think that nothing amazing is going on with the Iowa game, and it's like, no, it's just on the other side of the ball, which is actually harder to do.
Yeah.
So, anyways, on that. But in terms of realignment stuff, because, of course I've got to jump in there a little bit.
Yep.
That was very interesting conversation you and Dave had in terms of how, and how I'd phrase this is, we've talked way back, like watch for things to happen, watch for this to happen. It all seems a bit incredible and not possible. And yet, slowly over time, it appears like the inevitable grinds down to where these things look to be happening. And part of what people need to understand is that public statements that get put out by these guys, a lot of times, they could just be outright misleading. They're playing a game. They're doing the talk. When a Sankey comes out and says, "We're good at 16. We like it at 16. We don't like FSU because of the way their board of trustees acted. We don't, it doesn't always mean what they say."
Yeah.
And I think we've both been in agreement that it wouldn't make much sense for the SEC to just sit back and watch the Big Ten just roll right down the East Coast and into the South. Because they could. I mean, they could find a way to have the money to go Virginia, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State if they wanted to. Right down the coast.
Yeah.
So I don't think the SEC is going to allow that, and I think what you're saying on the Sankey end makes sense. In that you can't allow them. Like how strong is Clemson in the Big Ten? I mean, I don't know how good they are in the SEC, but if they're a Big Ten team, they're probably going to be a perennial power every year. So if you're the SEC, you can't allow those to go up there, right? Like Florida State and Clemson, you can't allow it. And this whole. You think Apple is the one that's going to be there? If you had to guess.
Well,
In terms of ESPN.
well, they said 2 companies, so it's not going to be just Apple that gets the 10%. It said 2, a mobile like a Verizon and an Apple. So, yeah, if I had to put my money on it, I would put it on Apple. Even though that doesn't quite fit with how Apple does things. If they're getting frustrated, if they don't see a pathway into the sports space, live sports space, if they need to get in with ESPN, through Disney, I think they would pull the trigger on it. So yeah, I would guess Apple.
Well, and 10% now could end up being 25% in a few years, and it could be.
Could. Yeah.
If Disney keeps going downward and needs to keep getting cash, I mean.
Yep.
It only gets easier to sell them more once you become more familiar with them.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much that. I just wanted to say, however it goes this weekend, man.
Yeah.
You're right. If Minnesota wins this, it's wide open. And as much as I'm not happy with Iowa's offense and I'm not happy with the Ferentz, if they end up winning the very last West Division championship of all time, they probably would have bought themselves another year. And
oh, yeah.
So be it.
Oh, no question about it. Yeah. you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. If Iowa wins the West, you can't. Everybody comes back somehow, some way.
Probably.
The Gophers, they should be healthy this Saturday. They didn't play this weekend, so that should help them. Darius Taylor should be back, a beast of a running back who hasn't played, didn't play against Michigan. Now, Cody Lindenberg, our monster of a linebacker, hasn't played all year. Supposedly, he's getting ready to play against Iowa. If he plays, that's going to be a big, big deal. So we'll see. But I got to tell you, Ethan Kaliakmanis, the Greek rifle, playing against Iowa. Iowa's defense. I thought about it last night. I couldn't get to sleep. I was tossing. I was turning. All I could see was Iowa just making big play, big turnovers, just sacking us, crushing us. It's just the nightmare is happening right now, and the game hasn't even started yet. So as of Monday, I am not mentally prepared for this football game. I got to get there by Saturday, Immaculate.
Yeah.
I got to get there by Saturday.
It might, this might be a crazy claim, but this might be one of the best defenses of all time. And I don't just mean this year.
Yeah.
I just mean the way that they do business. I mean, people don't realize it, but there's a lot of teams now that don't practice tackling very much.
Yeah.
That's not the case at Iowa.
Yeah.
If you're going to go to Iowa, you're going to get hit in practice. And, maybe that's not good for the offense. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when you watch some of them play, I get why other teams coming in are a little worried, because these guys know how to actually play defense. It's not just, going out there and a bunch of individuals. I mean, when they move, you watch, they're moving down the line as a unit, keeping their gaps. It's almost like watching art. And, like I said, you got to learn to watch defense a little differently than when you watch offense. But when you start to see it all in motion, it's pretty amazing. So
yeah, it is.
I hope someday people can appreciate it, but I also hope someday Iowa has an offense.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's going to be fun either way, man. Look forward to it. So,
all right.
You have yourself a good one.
You too, man. Appreciate it, Mr. Hot Guy. Immaculate. I see some Washington Huskies comments in the chat. I got to tell you, we had a watch party. I watched that game live. We watched the whole thing. Great game. Oregon's offense is fantastic because they can do so many things. So many things, Oregon. So many different things. Bo Nick's downfield passing doesn't match Michael Penix, but what he can do with that running game, And I gotta say, I gotta tip my cap to Washington. Because when they got, Oregon's offense is no joke. So giving up 33 points, I mean, most teams would not keep Oregon down at 33 points. But when Washington's defense, when they hit hard. They were a very physical team Saturday. When they were there to make the tackle, they hit people. So DeBoer must be that, that looks like a Big Ten physicality type of team. You don't see that when you watch a USC game, or even a UCLA game. Washington hit. They hit hard. Now, a lot of times they weren't there to make the play because, Oregon, Bucky Irving, these guys, Oregon's offense is great. But when Washington was there, man, they hit hard. So I was kind of impressed with that. DeBoer is a winner. He's won at every level. Jim Chow, absolutely correct. Ryan Grubb, great offense coordinator. Yeah. Absolutely. Utah's defense is scary. Yeah, they are. And they have, and they play with so much pressure on them. That's what makes Iowa's defense even more special. It's not like Iowa's offense is driving down the field, taking 10 minutes off the clock. Iowa's offense at times during Coach Ferentz's years as their head coach, very successful head coach, there were times they did that. And of course, Wisconsin would do the same thing for Jim Leonard and the defensive coordinator prior to Jim Leonard. But Iowa's offense doesn't do that. Now they do 3 plays and punt. And the defense of Iowa still makes the plays. It isn't like Iowa's sitting there, drive, 12-play drive, 14-play drive. Iowa's defense is resting on the sideline. Iowa defense has to come out immediately because Iowa's punting. And then they do a great punt, which helps Iowa's defense. Iowa's defense is getting very little help from Iowa's offense to be a great defense. They're still getting it done. And then, their special teams is so far beyond other teams, but they make more plays in a game on their special teams than the Gophers do all year. Positive plays. So this could be my last week doing this show because on Saturday I'm going to be carried out on a stretcher. I think the odds are very, very, very high. And it's going to be the end of a doubleheader. The first game we're going to be doing in a live watch party this Saturday is going to be the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions. And then we're going to be doing Minnesota versus Iowa. And I am very happy that we did our picks today, early in the week. The rest of the week, we're going to be talking about the games, stuff going on in college football. Things are percolating. And then this Saturday, we're going to be doing back-to-back watch parties. Buckeyes, Nittany Lions, Gophers, Hawkeyes. So, we're going to be closing down our live show right now. We've been on the air for about 2 hours, I think. I want to thank you all for joining us this Monday afternoon. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell. So when we come up live, you actually get notified that we're coming on live. And follow us on Twitter, @FlugEmpire, or follow us on X, @FlugEmpire. You see it on the ticker right now on the bottom of the screen because on our Twitter account, on our X account, we put down when we're coming up live. We give people basically a 30-minute head start, giving you a head start. We're coming on live. So please follow us on X, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your family and friends. And please smash that like button. If you like the content today, thank you for the great comments, for the great phone calls that were received, and for the donations that helps us keep the lights on. We appreciate it. Me and Mireya Hernandez Garcia Flugar Rojas Vargas, she appreciates you all. So do I. Keep your head on a swivel because we could be coming on live anytime this week. This is a very interesting week in college football. Not just because of the week 8 games, but what's going on with mediation, indirect talks, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please you all take great care of each other.